I don't normally talk about baseball on my channel, but I've made an executive decision to end that. I've made videos about triggering NFL and NBA fan bases before, and now you MLB motherfuckers are going to feel my wrath. So sit back, relax, and enjoy me triggering all 30 MLB fan bases. Shout out to 5 Points Vids. Arizona Diamondbacks. What has this franchise done outside of 2001 when they barely squeaked out a World Series win where baseball Alec Jones, Curt Schilling, won series co-MVP? This team has been around 25 years and never won a playoff series outside of that fluke 2001 season. Fuck Luis Gonzalez and his little blue pit, Atlanta Braves. Winning the World Series last year doesn't change the fact that this team should have 5 or 6 rings since 1991. All of those Hall of Fame pitchers, Hall of Fame hitters, and division titles for what? As many rings as the fucking Marlins? Bobby Cox is a piece of shit, Chipper Jones knocked up a Hooters waitress, and Marcell Ozuna is still on your roster. Fuck you. Baltimore Orioles. This once proud franchise used to command respect, but now it's known for losing a ton of games in a shitty part of town. One playoff series win in the last 25 years, but hey, it could have been more than that had Buck Showalter used Zach Britton versus Toronto in the 2016 wildcard game. Cal Ripken Jr. was an overrated compiler. Boston Red Sox. David Ortiz is an obese drug cheat. Manny Ramirez was a lazy cheater. Like Arizona, you benefited from baseball Alec Jones' clutch playoff pitching and his quote-unquote bloody sock. Alex Cora is a smug asshole your team took back because you have no integrity. Great job trading Mookie Betts for a half-eaten bag of pretzels. Despite your recent successes, you're still 18 titles away from tying the Yankees. Chicago Cubs. We had to hear about how the Cubs were cursed non-stop until 2016. And now we're going to have to hear about 2016 for the next 100 years because this team will never have as much talent as they did from 2015 to 2017 ever again. The dumb fans of this team ruined Steve Bartman's life because he had the audacity to reach for a foul ball. Fuck Wrigley Field and its stupid-ass ivy brick wall. Use a real wall, you pussies. No offense to Donald Trump. Chicago White Sox. Oh look, it's the other team who plays baseball in Chicago. What purpose does this team serve except to line Jerry Reinsdorf's pockets? There have been a lot of easily forgotten titles throughout the years across sports, but does anybody, and I mean anybody, remember the White Sox winning it in 2005? I don't. I'd argue that the series didn't even happen and it was all a figment of our imaginations. Other than 2005, this team hasn't won a playoff series since, checks notes, 1917. Tony La Russa is probably driving drunk right now. Cincinnati Reds. It's been a long fall from the years of the Big Red Machine where famously responsible gambler Pete Rose was leading the club. You had your cute title in 1990, but since then, well, let's see. One playoff series win. Your former owner, Marge Schott, praised Hitler and let her dogs take massive shits on the field. You signed prime Ken Griffey Jr. just for him to die on the field every year he wore your uniform. Great job wasting Joey Votto's career too, assholes. Cleveland Guardians. Thank goodness this team changed their name from the Indians. It really helped to end racism in this country. This team should have 3 or 4 titles since 1995, but instead they have 0. The list of chokes is long. The loaded 1995 lineup going quiet versus the Braves in the World Series, Jose Mesa choking away the 1997 title in the 9th inning, blowing a 3-1 lead to the Red Sox in the 2007 ALCS, and the worst arguably being their blown 3-1 lead in the 2016 World Series versus Chicago, followed up the very next year by blowing a 2-0 lead versus the Yankees in the ALDS. Lots of blowing going on here. No offense to incels. Colorado Rockies. The high point, no offense to Josh Gordon, of this shitty franchise's existence was sneaking into the World Series in 2007 just to get swept. Why would any great player want to play here? You could put up Babe Ruth numbers and it would be credited to Coors Field. And it wouldn't be completely wrong. I know Colorado is hell for pitchers because of the altitude, but Jesus, the best pitcher this team has had across 30 years is either Ubaldo Jimenez or Kyle Freeland. It's gross. Dinger, the dinosaur mascot, makes no sense either. Fuck him. Detroit Tigers. The Tigers had a nice tenure under Jim Leland where they made some deep playoff runs, but, of course, they could never close the deal and ended up with 0 rings like a bunch of losers. The current team is so bad, I don't even think AJ Hinch's famous cheating tactics will be enough to turn the club around. Miguel Cabrera might be a future Hall of Famer, but he's also a drunk driver, so fuck him. Houston Astros. I know the Astros aren't the only team that cheats, but they were dumb enough to get caught, and once they got caught, didn't show any remorse for it, so they can suck my balls. The 2 best best places to hear trash cans getting banged are Arizona State's campus and Minute Maid Park. Did you know Jose Altuve is a midget who stole Aaron Judge's 2017 MVP? Nice excuse for wearing a buzzer under your collar, you cheating dick. I am so glad this team shit its pants to the Nats and Braves in the World Series. They do not deserve success. Kansas City Royals. Since KC's 1985 World Series win, which they won thanks largely to a horribly blown missed call in Game 6, this team might as well have not existed outside of 2014 and 2015. After their 2015 World Series title, they promptly went back to being irrelevant again. No offense to Ja Rule. The Royals will always be a glorified farm system for the richer teams, as they can never afford any homegrown stars they manage to develop. Sucks to suck. Los Angeles Angels. The Angels constantly suck despite having all the resources in the world and stumbling into the best player of his generation and the new age Babe Ruth. But for all of Mike Trout's greatness, he is as boring as dry paint, and his numbers decline in August and September. Is Trout a choker? He certainly has no clutch moments in the playoffs to fall back on. Ohtani is a joy to the game, but will he hold up physically? I doubt it. LA needs to trade both of them and start over. Los Angeles Dodgers. No team has dominated the regular season in the last decade like the Dodgers, and yet they have 0 rings to show for it. That's right, motherfuckers. That joke of a ring they quote-unquote won in 2020 when the season was only 60 games doesn't count. That's only 37% of a full season. It's equivalent to a 6-game NFL season or a 30-game NBA season. Joke. Clayton Kershaw is the biggest choker of any pitcher ever. 0 real rings since 1988 despite all that cash to pay to guys like Trevor Bauer. Miami Marlins. The Eli Manning of MLB franchises. Somehow, despite their consistently aggressive shittiness, they managed to stumble ass backwards into 2 championships. Outside of those 2 title years, however, they've never made the playoffs in any other full season. They traded away their best player ever to the Yankees for no real reason, and Jose Fernandez is still idolized by many, despite the fact that he killed 2 people and himself after crashing a boat into a rock while high on cocaine and drunk out of his mind. Milwaukee Brewers. The Brewers are another team that exists without ever presenting the threat of winning it all. Not even when they're good, like they are right now, do you ever feel like they're actually going to do anything. After all, this is the same team who supported cheating-ass Ryan Braun and whose fans gave Josh Hader a standing ovation after his old tweets were unearthed for some reason. Christian Yelich sucks and will never be good again. Respect to his mom, though. Minnesota Twins. Byron Buxton just got hurt again while I said this. Such a shame. In very Marlins-like fashion, the Twins only made the playoffs twice from 1971 to 2001 and won the title both times. They've won 1 playoff series since 1992 and now merely exist to get their backs blown out by the Yankees. But forget about playoff series. The Twins have lost 18 straight playoff games, the longest postseason losing streak not just in MLB history, but sports history. Kirby Puckett was a piece of shit. New York Mets. Oh wow, look at you. You're so cool for living in New York City and not rooting for the Yankees. I hope your dick feels bigger. The Mets are the Clippers to the Yankees Lakers. No matter how hard they try and no matter how much they win, they will never be the top dog in their city. No offense to Michael Vick. Jacob deGrom is amazing and oh darn, he just got injured again. This team should have been a dynasty in the mid to late 80s, but they were more concerned with chasing pussy and snorting coke. If not for Bill Buckner, this team would have nothing to brag about since 1969. New York Yankees. I'm a Yankees fan, but I'm a fair one. It's embarrassing how badly this franchise has underachieved the last 20 years. Considering the payroll, they should make the World Series almost every year, and yet, since 2001, this team has just 1 ring, and since 2004, only made 1 World Series. October comes, and these overpaid assholes always forget how to hit. It's like clockwork. Derek Jeter couldn't field for shit and was also selfish. The team would have won more had he been a man and let A-Rod play shortstop. A-Rod was a liar and cheater, and also a massive playoff choker outside of 2009. Aroldis Chapman and Domingo Germán can fuck off. Oakland A's. The 80s and 90s A's were on so much HGH, I failed the drug test just talking about them. The A's pride themselves on being a small market team that works miracles to keep up with the big boys. Billy Beane got his dick sucked for his Moneyball shit, and it led to some successful regular seasons, but this team constantly chokes in the playoffs. They lost 6 straight winner-go-home games in the ALDS from 2000 to 2013. They've won 1 legit playoff series since 1991, and their home stadium is always 95% empty. Just an absolute disgrace. Philadelphia Phillies. The Phillies had a great run from 2007 to 2011, where they won the division each year, won 2 pennants, and a World Series. But outside those 5 years, the last 40 years have been largely terrible. They haven't made the playoffs in 10 years. Chase Utley was a dirty player and wore too much hair gel. The best player to ever wear a Phillies uniform, Mike Schmidt, looks like a 70s porn star and thinks players can't lead a team unless they speak English. Dick. Pittsburgh Pirates. The Pirates might have the most beautiful stadium in all of baseball, and for what? They put out a terrible product every single year, no offense to the WNBA, and haven't been relevant since pre-steroids Barry Bonds wore their uniform in the early 90s. Most Pirates fans are just boomers who wax poetic about how strong Roberto Clemente's arm was in right field. It's been 50 years, guys. Let it go, please. This team desperately needs a leader like Ben Roethlisberger. San Diego Padres. This team hasn't won a real playoff series since 1998 when they got swept in the World Series. Fernando Tatis Jr. is more fragile than a wet paper bag and can't field for shit. Players go to San Diego and fall off the map. It's a dead zone. This might offend Padres fans, but Tony Gwynn is not the best hitter of all time. In fact, he's probably not even a top 50 hitter of all time. He was a great contact hitter who didn't draw many walks and had very little power. San Francisco Giants. The Giants are so goddamn boring that nobody outside of the Bay Area even gives a shit that they won 3 titles in a 5-year span. In fact, I'd say the team is still more famous for their Barry Bonds years where they never won anything. Buster Posey was a nice player, but he's not a Hall of Famer. Gabe Kapler is the kind of guy who jerks off by looking at himself in the mirror. Imagine winning 107 games just to get your shit owned by your biggest rival in the NLDS. Seattle Mariners. The Mariners have the longest current playoff drought in sports. That alone should be enough to trigger any Mariners fan, but I'll twist the knife even deeper. No offense to Paul Pierce. This team had prime Ken Griffey Jr., prime Edgar Martinez, and a young but still really good Alex Rodriguez all at the same time and won jack shit in the late 90s. They lost Griffey and made the ALCS in 2000 just to lose. Then they lost A-Rod in 2001 and won 116 games just to lose in the ALCS again. They wasted Ichiro and Felix Hernandez's careers. This is a team of failure. Ken Griffey Jr. is not better than Barry Bonds, and even if he stayed healthy, he wasn't better than Bonds, Trout, Mays, or Mantle, among others. St. Louis Cardinals. The Cardinals arguably have the worst fans and the snobbiest attitude of any team in all of baseball. There is a certain racist country club vibe the team and fan base gives off. They have 2 titles in the last 40 years, which isn't bad, but not enough to warrant the superior attitude. Also, Yadier Molina is not a Hall of Famer. I don't give a fuck about pitch framing or any other bullshit you Cardinals fans pull out of your asses. He is a below average hitter and a massive tool. Tampa Bay Rays. Since 2008, the Rays have been one of baseball's better run franchises, and I respect that. But I do not respect that disgusting landfill they call a home field. Slopacana Field needs to be torn down immediately. Do Rays fans even exist, though? The team is constantly one of the lowest in attendance every year. Is a baseball team actually good if there's nobody around to see it? Also, fuck Stingrays for what they did to Steve Irwin. Texas Rangers. The Rangers franchise died the night they blew 2 seemingly insurmountable leads in Game 6 of the 2011 World Series. Yeah, sure, they made the playoffs a couple more times since then, but some things just don't go away. It seems like the Rangers have more juicers than any other team. Pudge Rodriguez, Rafael Palmeiro, Nelson Cruz, Alex Rodriguez, etc. I am stunned an organization run by George W. Bush at one point would be so incompetent. Nolan Ryan is overrated. Toronto Blue Jays. This team sold out to win a couple rings in the early 90s, and since then they've been content with being also Rans in the AL East. Sure, they had back-to-back ALCS appearances in 2015 and 2016, but really, who cares? I mean, really, when has anybody ever been afraid of the Blue Jays? What a stupid fucking name, too. Oh no, is the Canadian Mafia going to pour maple syrup on me for insulting their team? Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is a fat slob. Washington Nationals. Ever since stealing the Expos away from Montreal in 2005, the Nationals have been largely irrelevant. Yes, they had that nice World Series win in 2019 where they beat the evil Astros, but other than that, not much to brag about from a team perspective. It's not for lack of star power. Bryce Harper, Juan Soto, Max Scherzer, and Steven Strasburg are better than most teams can say over the last decade or two, but this team is so uninspiring regardless. Strasburg just got hurt again as I said this. Dave Martinez, the current manager, allegedly fucked Ryne Sandberg's wife while they were teammates on the Cubs in the late 80s. That's the kind of leadership and integrity I want in my club's manager, goddammit.